Today is the 10th of June, and this morning, she didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't even ask the question anymore. She simply looked in the mirror and thought, "Why am I so easy to forget?" No calls, no lingering touches, not even a "you look beautiful today" from the man who once couldn't stop saying it. She moved through her morning like a ghost, making coffee, packing lunches, replying to texts none of which asked how she was doing. And as the day stretched ahead like a hallway of closed doors, she felt it again. Unwanted, undesired, invisible. But this isn't the end of her story. Not today, not ever. Because Archangel Michael is stepping forward with a truth. You are still a gift. Even if the world has stopped unwrapping you. Her name is Marianne. She's 52, a Christian woman from Charleston, South Carolina, a mother of 3, a wife of 27 years, a Sunday school volunteer, a woman who spent decades putting everyone else first. She didn't always feel this way. There was a time when her husband, Scott, couldn't stop touching her, when her children clung to her legs and begged for one more bedtime story, when friends called her radiant, when strangers turned to see her smile. But slowly, the world quieted. The hugs became nods. The kisses became habits. The compliments, rare. Now, Marianne walks into rooms and wonders if anyone notices. She dresses with care, but no one looks. She posts a photo and gets no comments. She aches in her body, and more so in her soul. You might be Marianne today, feeling like your light has dimmed. Like time has taken more than just youth, it's taken visibility. But hear this. God has not stopped noticing you. Heaven has not stopped desiring your heart. And Archangel Michael is on assignment to remind you, you are still a gift, not a burden, not an obligation, not a used to be. You are a sacred presence wrapped in skin and prayer. And you were never meant to be unwrapped by everyone, only the worthy. In the stillness of her prayer closet, Marianne lit a candle and whispered, "God, am I still beautiful to you?" The answer didn't come in thunder. It came in memory. She remembered the verse she'd read 1,000 times, but never felt was for her. "You are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you." Song of Solomon 4-7. And as the flame flickered, she felt a presence behind her. She turned, expecting nothing. But in that sacred silence, her soul recognized him. Archangel Michael. Radiant, calm, fierce in holiness. He spoke only one sentence. "You've mistaken silence for rejection, but heaven is watching in reverence." That night, Marianne didn't need her husband's compliment. She didn't need a friend to validate her worth, because the Most High had already spoken. Still, Michael wasn't done. He came bearing a system of sacred framework to reclaim the truth of every forgotten woman, a system called the gifting mirror. And in the next chapter, he would show her how to see herself again, so the world could follow. Marianne didn't sleep that night, not because of anxiety or pain, she was used to those, but because something had shifted. Something deep in her spirit had been stirred by Archangel Michael's words. "You've mistaken silence for rejection, but heaven is watching in reverence." She lay awake, hand on her heart, tears drying into the pillowcase, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Wanted. Not by her husband, not by friends, but by God. When she woke up, she remembered the name the angel gave her, the gifting mirror. What did that mean? She walked into the bathroom, turned on the light, and stood in front of the mirror. Her first instinct was what it had always been, to judge, to sigh, to scan for flaws, wrinkles, loose skin, tired eyes. But this time, something holy interrupted her. Would you criticize what heaven still calls beautiful? She placed a trembling hand on her cheek and whispered, "I am still a gift." And that became the beginning of her healing. The gifting mirror system, as revealed by Archangel Michael, is built on 3 sacred truths. And the first is this: your value is not in how you are seen, it's in what you carry. Marianne had spent years believing she had to be desirable to be valuable, that if she wasn't admired, praised, or longed for, she was slowly losing her worth. But Michael revealed a deeper truth. You don't become less of a gift just because someone forgets how to unwrap you. The problem isn't your fading. It's their forgetting. Forgetting how sacred it is to witness a woman who has endured pain with grace, a mother who has prayed through storms, a wife who has stayed faithful through emotional droughts, a daughter of God who has remained standing when the world gave her every reason to fall. That is the gift. So Michael gave her a task. Every morning, Marianne was to speak one truth to her reflection, not about beauty, but about glory. She looked herself in the eye and said, "I carry the wisdom of wounds healed by heaven." The next day, "I carry the gentleness of Jesus in how I speak." Then, "I carry the power of praise even when no one hears me." These weren't affirmations. They were reverent recognitions, each one lighting a small fire inside her. And something began to shift. Her posture, her voice, her presence. Michael's second truth followed. Gifts must be opened slowly or their value is lost. She realized she had been rushing her own healing, trying to force others to see her, trying to make her husband desire her again, trying to feel whole overnight. But the most sacred gifts, those crafted in the heart of Godard, never rushed. They are unwrapped with reverence over time. That evening, Scott came home, tossed his keys on the counter, and paused. Marianne was humming, cooking dinner. Nothing unusual, but something was different. She looked at him fully, no begging in her eyes, no neediness, just light. He lingered longer in the kitchen than usual. He watched her, curious, and when she caught him staring, she smiled and said, "Hi." 2 letters, 1 look, and it struck him. She looked more alive than she had in months, not because of makeup, not because she was trying, but because something holy had returned to her. And Michael whispered again, "When a woman remembers her worth, the world must relearn how to approach her." Marianne didn't change her clothes. She didn't dye her hair. She didn't lose 10 pounds overnight. But something had undeniably shifted. Her home felt different. Not because anyone else changed, but because she had stopped apologizing for existing. The woman who once moved like a shadow now walked with light in her steps. Archangel Michael's next truth from the gifting mirror system arrived in the quiet. The gift becomes sacred again when it is no longer hidden. For years, Marianne dimmed her glow to avoid rejection. She wore soft tones, avoided mirrors, kept her prayers silent. She learned to not expect attention. She called it humility, but it was really shame in disguise. Because somewhere between the responsibilities and heartbreak, she started believing that her time had passed, that her beauty had expired, that her presence had become background noise. But Michael declared boldly, "You were never meant to fade. You were meant to radiate." So she began the third step of her divine reawakening. She started taking up space again. At first, it felt uncomfortable. She wore that bright coral blouse she hadn't touched in years. She laughed a little louder at dinner. She spoke with her hands again at Bible study. And instead of downplaying her talents, she offered them openly. She wasn't being arrogant. She was stepping into sacred visibility. Because heaven doesn't anoint the invisible, heaven anoints the present. One afternoon, while folding laundry, her daughter walked in and paused. "Mom, you look really happy lately." Marianne smiled. "I remembered I'm a gift." Her daughter furrowed her brow. "Like, in general?" Marianne nodded. "Number specifically, a gift, from God, to the people I love." And in that moment, something unlocked in both of them. Because when one woman reclaims her divine light, it reflects on everyone who watches her. Her daughter hugged her a little longer that night. Her son called her just to talk. Even her husband lingered after dinner instead of drifting off to the garage. Michael's system wasn't just working, it was transforming her world. Because she wasn't waiting to be desired anymore. She was becoming desirable again by divine presence, not performance. That's the third sacred truth. The gift attracts not by seduction, but by sacred confidence. Marianne realized she didn't need to beg for closeness. She didn't need to initiate every conversation. She didn't need to shrink to be safe. She was made to carry warmth, to carry wisdom, to carry worth. That night, she stood in front of the mirror again and said, "I am a gift God still wraps in grace every morning." And as she turned off the light, her husband walked by, paused, and said, "You look different lately, peaceful." She didn't respond right away. She simply looked at him, her eyes steady, heart full, and whispered, "I remembered who I am." And in that pause longer than it had been in months, she smiled back. Something had returned to his gaze. Not desire driven by attraction, but desire drawn by reverence. Because when a woman remembers she's sacred, the world is invited to remember it too. And Archangel Michael had more to say. In the next step, he would lead Marianne to the final doorway of restoration. Belonging. The shift in Marianne wasn't loud. It didn't come with applause. It didn't come with a grand gesture from her husband or a viral moment of praise. It came in whispers, the whisper of her own voice, saying, "I matter." The whisper of heaven responding, "Yes, you do." Archangel Michael's fourth and final truth in the gifting mirror system was the most difficult and the most freeing. The gift must first belong to God before it belongs to anyone else. Marianne had spent years aching to belong, to her family, to her marriage, to a world that praised youth, beauty, and boldness qualities she thought had slipped from her grasp. But belonging built on the approval of others is fragile. One ignored text, one unspoken compliment, one season of loneliness, and it shatters. Michael whispered, "If you do not return your belonging to the one who made you, you'll forever chase what was always yours." So Marianne made a decision. She stopped performing, stopped hoping someone would notice her sacrifice, stopped trying to earn attention with silence or smiles. She returned to the sacred place where her identity had never been questioned, her prayer life. Each morning, before the house woke up, she would sit with her journal and write one line, "I belong to God before I belong to anyone else." And that changed everything. Because when you belong to God, you stop begging for proof from man. You stop looking to tired eyes to see you. You stop blaming your reflection for someone else's blindness. You stand tall because you're held. You move gently because you're led. You speak clearly because your worth is no longer on trial. Scott, her husband, didn't say much at first, but he noticed. The way she smiled without looking at him for approval. The way she laughed without scanning the room for reaction. The way she prayed out loud with boldness again. And one evening, as they folded laundry together in silence, he said, "Have I made you feel unwanted?" Marianne didn't flinch. She nodded softly. For a long time, yes. He swallowed, quiet. "But I don't feel that way anymore," she continued. He looked up, surprised. "Really?" She smiled. "Because I remembered I'm still God's gift given when you forgot." There was no bitterness in her voice, just freedom. And it stunned him. Marianne didn't say it to hurt him. She said it to release herself, because she finally understood. Being desired is beautiful, but being anchored in God's desire for you, that's unshakable. That night, Scott sat beside her during prayer for the first time in years. No words, just presence. And when the candle flickered beside them, she felt the quiet confirmation from Michael. "You've returned to your true owner. Now you can be regifted to those who will cherish you properly." You who are listening, you are not too old. You are not too late. You are not past your season. You are not invisible. You are simply divinely wrapped. And sometimes the world takes time to recognize what God crafted in secret. Do not unwrap yourself for the unready. Do not shrink for the blind. Do not erase yourself to be tolerated. You belong first and always to heaven. And because of that, you are still a gift. It had been nearly 4 weeks since the morning Marianne first heard Archangel Michael's whisper. 4 weeks since she stood in front of her mirror and saw herself not as forgotten, but as a vessel still carrying light. Her husband Scott had not transformed overnight. He still had quiet days, still got distracted, still missed moments. But Marianne no longer needed those moments to prove anything, because she wasn't waiting to feel like a gift anymore. She knew she was one. Michael's final message came not as a thunderous revelation, but as a soft, closing breath in prayer. Now that you see yourself, allow others the time to see you too. This was the final principle in the gifting mirror system. Patience is the wrapping that protects sacred worth. Marianne had been patient for years, but this was different. This was not the exhausted patience of hoping others would change. This was holy patience, rooted in a knowing that her value was not decreasing while she waited. Like fine wine, like aged wood, like the gospel itself, time wasn't draining her beauty. It was deepening it. And one evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Scott sat beside her on the porch. He exhaled slowly and said, "I think I stopped seeing you, Marianne, because I stopped seeing myself." She didn't cry. She didn't interrupt. She placed her hand over his and whispered, "I know, and it's okay, because I never stopped seeing me." That broke something open in him. He turned to face her fully and asked, "Can we try again?" She smiled. "We already are." You who feel unwanted, this is your moment of truth. Not because someone finally noticed you, but because you noticed you. You who have given years, emotions, prayers, meals, tears, kisses, and effort. You who have aged in faith, grown in pain, endured in silence. You are not forgotten. You are not a phase. You are not background. You are a gift wrapped in grace, fire-tested, heaven-certified, and still entirely worthy of desire. Here is your final action step. Tonight, stand in front of the mirror and speak these words aloud. I belong to God first. I am still wrapped in glory, and I will never again shrink to be loved. Then look into your own eyes, the way heaven looks at you, with patience, with pride, with power. Because God does not make expired beauty. God makes eternal gifts. And you, dear listener, are still a gift.